folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. Good evening, folks. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Urshan, and welcome to Volume 5 of my old classic films collection. Once again, the criteria for this collection is nothing newer than 1979. And here we're still talking about 1970s horror, so it takes up such a huge chunk of my collection. It's just insane how many 70s horror film is, because there's so many great 70s horror films in there. Alright, let's get to it, shall we? First one is Dawn of the Dead. Yes, the sequel to George Romero's masterpiece, Night of the Living Dead, and that's Dawn of the Dead, which I think this film is even better, if that's possible, because I think this is the greatest zombie film ever made. It's just an absolute epic, and I love the characters in this film. I love the setting in the mall. I just love how they make the mall kind of their home, and they like set up shop there. In the meantime, they're trying to fight off all the zombies that kind of creep their way in, you know. And they also have to deal with a bunch of bikers that break in. They're like, no, this is our place. We found this first. You know, and they have a big war at the mall. It's crazy. And you have to deal with the human element as well as the zombies. And then you got one of my absolute favorite slashers from the 1970s. That is Alice, Sweet Alice. This is a great release from Arrow here. And then you got the original poster art there, which I love as well. And this is the introduction of Brooke Shields in her debut. Such a great film, just oozing with atmosphere. You can tell it's obviously influenced by Italian horror for sure. I just love the atmosphere. I love the look of the killer with that weird translucent mask. You know, it's so scary. You know, this film is creepy as hell, and not only that, is I love the religious elements too, which is something different for a slasher movie. It's got all these different elements. It's more than a slasher, really. There's just so much going on. You got the religious element, you got the classic slasher style elements with it. You got the whodunit aspect, you know, because they present this girl, Alice, as being the killer for sure. Just this young little girl that they think she murdered her sister. We don't know, and it's questionable, you know, and that's the mystery of it. Did she do it or didn't she? If she didn't do it, who did? It all culminates in the Catholic Church and this horrific scene with the priest, and it's crazy, man. I love it. Then we got the exploitation slasher classic, The Toolbox Murders. This movie's wild. It's pretty sleazy. It's pretty bold. It's pretty nasty for its time, for sure. And this was 1978, I believe, that this came out. And you got When a Stranger Calls, starring Carol Kane. You know, using that classic trope from horror where, you know, the creepy calls from the killer coming from inside the house kind of thing, you know. I love it. It's got one of the scariest openings in horror, which hugely influenced Scream, of course. But yeah, most of the movies, though, trying to, you know, cat and mouse game, the police detective trying to catch the killer, and, you know, we spend an uncomfortable amount of time with the killer, too, which is strange, you know, when you get to know this dude is really creepy, you know. It's like, I don't want to be following this guy. Why am I following this guy around? Then we got Black Christmas, 1970s slasher from Canada, absolute classic, from Bob Clark, who ironically also directed A Christmas Story, classic Christmas comedy film, and he also directed a Christmas slasher film. But one of the best, without a doubt. You know, you got Olivia Hussey in the classic role as Jess, and you got the sorority house slasher theme. You know, this introduces a lot of themes that we would see and used a lot in the slasher genre, of course. The sorority house massacre type thing, you know. And yeah, you got the calls coming from inside the house that we saw in When a Stranger Calls, as well as Silent Night, Bloody Night, by the way, which a lot of people forget about that. But yeah, so atmospheric, highly influential to Halloween, of course, as well, with that POV shot at the beginning when you see the killer and from his perspective through a lot of the movie, you know. And it's so funny that the killer, Billy, is just up in the attic the whole time and killing people from inside the house, and nobody knows he's up there. Even the cops never bother to look. It's like, you don't look up in the attic? Like, what? You're supposed to search every area of the house. It's just, like, stupid, but I love it. He's got a great cast. Margot Kidder, you know, John Saxon. Fantastic film. Christmas slasher. And we got Audrey Rose starring a young Anthony Hopkins in this horror film that, you know, probably could be considered one of the many knockoffs of The Exorcist, but I think this is a very creative way of doing it, something very different. Anthony Hopkins' character lost his daughter. His daughter was killed in a horrific car accident, and he believes that this girl, Audrey, is his daughter reincarnated, and he claims that, and the family of this young girl, the parents of this young girl, is like, what are you talking about? This is my daughter. This isn't your. What are you doing? And they think he's kind of harassing her at first, but then the wife starts believing him after a while. You know, maybe there is something to it. Maybe she is reincarnated, and she starts to believe it, and then at the end, it all comes to a head, and it's very interesting and very suspenseful, and I really enjoy it. And then you got Tourist Trap, absolute classic from 1979, starring Chuck Connors. One of the early Charles Band productions, which eventually became, Full Moon horror, of course. But yeah, this is a great movie. Such an underrated film. It's so suspenseful, so creepy. But yeah, it's only like PG, I believe. You know, it's a very violent, like, intense movie to be PG rated. But it's great. You got Tanya Roberts in there in an early role. Tourist Trap is very, very creepy. It's another one that's kind of an early slasher movie. A supernatural slasher, because the killer actually has powers. He's got telekinetic powers. And you got Last House on the Left. Keep telling yourself it's only a movie. It's only a movie. Definitely a brutal film, no question about it, but I do have some issues with it. This was Wes Craven working along with Sean Cunningham, who came up with Friday the 13th. But yeah, it's brutal, and there's some horrific scenes of rape and torture and madness, you know. But at the same time, they try and take you out of it with this horrible comedy with these goofy Keystone Cop dudes, and it's so weird. And some of the music in the film is really weird and does not fit the film at all. You got these horrific things happening, and you got this weird, like, hippie music playing. You know, it's like upbeat music when there's these horrific things happening on the screen. But it's very realistic, very brutal. But yeah, it's an intense beast for sure. The Last House on the Left. Then you got The Wicker Man, starring the great Christopher Lee, one of the great British horror movies of all time, and an excellent folk horror film. Probably the greatest folk horror film ever made. And you got Edward Woodward has a great performance in here, as well as Britt Eklund. And of course you got that horrifying scene at the end that's so classic, so epic. Here's a very interesting one, Frankenstein, The True Story, starring Jane Seymour. It's a great film. Surprisingly good 70s Frankenstein film. Starring David McCallum as well. You get a double shot of Amicus anthologies, and that is Tales from the Crypt, as well as The Vault of Horror from the famous comic books, you know. I absolutely love Tales from the Crypt. One of my absolute favorite. I prefer this over the television series, even though I do enjoy the TV show, but I feel like the original Tales from the Crypt movie is so good. One of the best anthology films. Starring Joan Collins and Peter Cushing. Amicus classic for sure. And Amicus did so many anthology films. They did Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, you know, so many of them. A House That Dripped Blood. And we got David Cronenberg with The Brood. This movie is nuts. It's crazy. It's brutal. It just gets under your skin, man. I mean, David Cronenberg has that ability to get under your skin and creep you out, and with the body horror stuff, you know. Starring Oliver Reed, Samantha Eggar is one of the most psychotic women I have ever seen in a movie. When you want to talk about bad mom, like this is the ultimate bad mom. Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1979, the remake, starring Donald Sutherland, Leonard Nimoy, amazing cast, Veronica Cartwright, Jeff Goldblum. This is, I think, the ultimate version of that story, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is one of the greatest this is probably my personal favorite remake of all time, because I think it's better in every way to the original. Even though I love the original film, I think this is the superior version because it's much scarier, it's much more intense, and it's creepy as hell. I mean, it's so well done, it's so well written, so well acted, amazing cast, and fantastic direction. Great practical effects too, you know, right up there with The Thing almost. The Stepford Wives, definitely a classic. Kind of on the border of sci-fi and horror, but very interesting film. You got The Virgin Witch from the 70s. This is one of those movies where they just, like, the premise of it is horror, but it's really just an excuse for a soft porn, basically. There's so much nudity, and it's just, like, ridiculous. It's really just a soft porn disguised as a horror movie, really. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's like an exploitation classic, I would say. Here's a really interesting film from the 70s, from 1976, The Sentinel, starring a young Chris Sarandon. This movie is wild, man. Very, very interesting. It's one that people don't talk about too much. Burnt Offerings, I absolutely love this movie. Karen Black, Oliver Reed, Burgess Meredith, and Bette Davis. This movie absolutely traumatized me as a kid, you know, when he has the nightmares of that, oh man. It's crazy, man. Great film. One of the best haunted house movies of all time. The Undertaker, that's what I was trying to think of. I couldn't think of the word. the creepy Undertaker he sees in his dreams who pulls up in the hearse, you know, and he starts shaking, you know. I love Karen Black in the movie, too. I mean, how the house just kind of possesses her, and she becomes obsessed with it, and she becomes obsessed with the old lady who lives up in the room upstairs, you know, who we never actually see, and then we find out at the end, and one of the craziest endings in horror, too. Excellent film, Horror Express, starring the great Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee together, who were always magic on the screen together, and this is a great, like, Spanish film. Yeah, great. This could have easily been a Hammer movie, you know, because it's a Spanish and British co-production. It's such a great film. You also got Telly Savalas in there. I think it has a lot of elements of The Thing, actually, when you see The Thing. It's got a lot of similarities to that film and that story. Because they get this creature, you know, unfrozen from the ice, you know, and he runs loose on the train, killing people one by one, and kind of infecting them and possessing their bodies, and then it becomes almost like the Body Snatchers kind of thing. But the monster moves like from body to body like The Thing, you know. And then you got another classic anthology film from Amicus, starring Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and Ingrid Pitt there, you know, in the vampire story. Definitely a blast. I absolutely love this one. I love the Christopher Lee story is great. The Peter Cushing story is great. And yeah, every story in this one is great. I love it. Probably next to Tales from the Crypt, I'd say this is the best anthology from Amicus. Then we have the 1979 version of Dracula starring Frank Langella. There's so many great adaptations of Dracula, and this is definitely a great one, starring Donald Pleasance and Laurence Olivier as Van Helsing. Yeah, I think Frank Langella is probably the most handsome and suave and debonair Dracula of all time. That's where he excels. And it's got that romance, too, and it's very gothic. It's very intense. It actually is made by Universal Films, too. Another really sexy vampire film called Vampires. A really good movie. Very erotic. And not sleazy, really. Just very erotic, very sexy, you know. Gothic, kind of lesbian vampire film. And then, of course, you got the sci-fi horror masterpiece, Alien, my favorite sci-fi horror movie of all time, starring the great Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley, probably the greatest female heroine of all time. I love the creature design by H.R. Geiger. It's so scary, it's so intense, the atmosphere is unbelievable. Such a great mix of sci-fi and horror. Of course, you got my favorite movie of all time, Halloween. I mean, you've heard me talk on this channel ad nauseum about this film and why it's my favorite of all time. And that is still the case. The style, the atmosphere, the music is so intense. The characters are amazing. The way it's shot by John Carpenter is incredible. The cinematography by Dean Cundey. The character of Michael Myers. The way he's kept a complete mystery in this film. And the way we just kind of see him in the background for the most of the movie until all hell breaks loose at the end, you know. Fantastic movie. Absolutely brilliant. And we're getting into the Hammer horrors of the 1970s. You got Countess Dracula starring Ingrid Pitt in the true story of the Countess Elizabeth Bathory. And of course, it's more based on the legend of Elizabeth Bathory than actual fact, really. But it's very intriguing, and I love. Now we're moving on to the Hammer horror films from the 70s. Countess Dracula, starring the lovely Ingrid Pitt, which is the, loosely based story of Countess Elizabeth Bathory. I'd say it's more about the legend of Countess Elizabeth Bathory rather than facts, of course. Which means, that she bathed in the blood of virgins and that made her young again. And that's literally what happens in this movie. The more she kills and the more she bathes in their blood, the younger she gets and the more beautiful she gets. And if she doesn't continue the killing spree, she starts to deteriorate and get older looking again. Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, probably the most underrated Hammer horror film in my opinion. Absolutely love this movie. Flipping the genders on that story, of course. Instead of Dr. Jekyll taking the potion and at night he becomes the monster, Mr. Hyde. He becomes Sister Hyde. He becomes a woman, a beautiful woman at that, Martine Beswick. Ralph Bates is in the lead role of Dr. Jekyll, of course. And there's a lot of heavy-duty slasher elements here, too. It's basically like, Jack the Ripper on steroids, There's a lot of nasty slasher killings in this movie. Picking off prostitutes one by one. And taking the female hormones and injecting it into himself, and that's how he becomes a woman. And then when he becomes a woman, he continues the killing spree and continues to kill young women at night in the alleyways of London, Whitechapel, which is the same area as, Jack the Ripper did his killings, of course. Another Jack the Ripper style Hammer horror film, Hands of the Ripper. So what happens in this one is we meet the daughter of the actual Jack the Ripper. So Jack the Ripper kind of dies and passes the evil on to his daughter, and his daughter carries on the tradition of picking people off one by one. And I'd say this is the most brutal, most gory Hammer film of all time, probably. It's basically a slasher film. There's some nasty kills in this. And you had Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, starring the lovely, the beautiful Valerie Leon, in the title role of Queen Terra. Based on Jewel of the Seven Stars, which is a novel from Bram Stoker, I believe. And this is a great adaptation. So much fun. Full of sexualized eroticism, and Valerie plays dual roles in the film. Yeah, it's all about her. It does have Andrew Keir in it, too, who's in a lot of Hammer films. Like Hands of the Ripper, Quatermass and the Pit. Then we got Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter, which is a fantastic film. One of the last great vampire movies in the Hammer genre. It's almost like a swashbuckling adventure with vampires, there's certainly horror in there, but there's it's a little bit more lighthearted too. It's got some humor in there, and it's very sexy, and it's fun, and there's a lot of action and adventure in it. And it's such a good time. Then we have the Karnstein trilogy, beginning with Vampire Lovers, which is one of my absolute favorite vampire films of all time. I think it's the quintessential lesbian vampire movie. Starring the great Ingrid Pitt, And she's just iconic in this role as Carmilla, based on the classic novel, of course, which all three of these films are. I'd say this one is the most is based the most on the novel. The sequels really, certain elements are in there, but yeah, great cast. You got Madeline Smith in there. You got Kate O'Mara. Such a great movie, and I think Ingrid Pitt is basically like Dracula, as if Dracula was a woman. She's got that kind of accent, that kind of deep accent, but sexy at the same time. She's gorgeous. While she does pick off men, she seems to care a lot more about the women. She gets like emotionally involved when it comes to the women. Especially the one that she wants to be her companion for the rest of eternity. Then we get into some of the Hammer Dracula films that were released in the 70s. You got Scars of Dracula, released in 1970. There were two Hammer Draculas released in 1970. This is the one that kind of gets overlooked, I feel. I feel like it's very underrated. Not enough people talk about it. It's kind of like a one-shot. It's not really connected to all the other Hammer Draculas, really. It's just kind of a one-shot story. But Dracula has so much more dialogue, so much more to do in this one. And that's why I enjoy this one. We get to see that charming, debonair, suave side of Dracula, as well as the monstrous, vicious side of Dracula as well, and you see both equally here, and that is the reason to see this movie. Some people might avoid it because of the horrible vampire bats. They look so bad. Catch this film in Fright Night from 1985. There's a little clip of it. You see Charlie Brewster watching it on TV. One of my absolute favorites, also released in 1970, and this is connected to the others. This is Taste the Blood of Dracula. Some of the most incredible gothic atmosphere of the entire series. I mean, it's so dark, and I love the idea of introducing the satanic elements into the film, with the black mass, being used to conjure up Dracula by this guy, Lord Courtly, who's into some dark stuff, man. And this is a dark entry in the Dracula series, for sure. Originally, Christopher Lee wasn't supposed to be in this, but the studios were like, no, we want Christopher Lee. And, of course, Christopher Lee at that time was reluctant to return, but they kind of threatened him, like, made him feel bad, like, if you don't come, people are going to lose their jobs, so he's like, alright, I'll do it. And I'm glad he did, because he's at his menacing best here. Granted, he doesn't have so much to do, he doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue, but his presence is felt absolutely. As it always is. And then you had Dracula A.D. 1972, which saw the return of Peter Cushing as Van Helsing, and what a glorious return it is. And Dracula dies not once, but twice in this movie, right at the beginning and then at the end, of course. But yeah, Christopher Lee is back in the modern era, in the 1970s, actually, swinging London. And this movie is just a lot of fun. Some of the music is questionable when they try to do that old classic rock stuff. It's bad, but there's a lot of fun stuff in here. You got Carolyn Monroe making her Hammer debut as well. Stephanie Beacham, great cast, and you get some great scenes between Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, of course. Then you got the much maligned Satanic Rites of Dracula, which is the final performance of Christopher Lee as Dracula for Hammer films. But I personally love this film. I think it's an absolute blast. And this is basically continuing right where Dracula AD left off in the 70s. And it has some returning characters too, like the detective played by Michael Collis. And you have Peter Cushing returning once again. They inject a little bit of the spy thriller into this one, which is really cool. A little James Bond aspect, you know. And basically Dracula is trying to bring about the Black Plague, you know, to wipe out the entire human race with this virus that will destroy everybody. And it's up to Van Helsing to save the day. And yeah, that was it for Christopher Lee in the series, but it wasn't the final film in the Hammer Dracula series, because we also got The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, or The Seven Brothers of Dracula. So this film does actually feature Count Dracula. He's just not played by Christopher Lee, unfortunately. Played by John Forbes Robinson. And he does a solid job. You can't fill the shoes of Christopher Lee. That's like an impossible task, though. But they keep the Dracula character to a minimum. It's mainly focused on the kung fu side of things, because this was collaboration with Shaw Brothers, who did all the great kung fu movies in the 70s. So yeah, it's a mix of kung fu with Hammer-style vampires, and it's an absolute blast, even though it just sounds ridiculous, and it is, but it's just so much more fun than it should be, really. Then we have Vampire Circus, one of the last great Hammer vampire films. You know, what a great idea to have these vampires, you know, disguised as circus folk. And it's a great way to lure people in, isn't it? This also does have Peter. Oh man, what the hell's his name? Shit. Next up, you have Vampire Circus, which is one of the last great Hammer vampire films. What a great idea to have these vampires disguised as circus folk. You know, it's a great way to lure victims in by giving them a show and then picking them off one by one behind the scenes with their fangs. And they also have David Prowse is in this too, as the strong man of the circus. But yeah, this is a really good vampire flick. And then we also had a couple Hammer Frankensteins in the 70s. We had Horror of Frankenstein, which is the only film in the series not to have Peter Cushing as Victor Frankenstein. This one is more like Young Frankenstein, not to be confused with the Gene Wilder film. But that's what this is, Frankenstein in his younger days, played by Ralph Bates. And it's almost like in a way, it's kind of a humorous remake of the original Curse of Frankenstein. They inject a lot more humor into this too. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I don't know why people don't like it. And David Prowse plays the monster in this film. And he's brutal. This is the most brutal monster in Frankenstein history, I think. He hacks people up like a slasher killer with an axe and stuff. It's crazy. On the plus side as well, you got Veronica Carlson and Kate O'Mara, two legendary Hammer beauties. But when it didn't quite hit, they decided they wanted to bring Peter Cushing back as Victor Frankenstein in his final outing and the final film in the Hammer Frankenstein series, Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. And I really enjoy this one too. I think this was a great way to end the series on a high note, because I really enjoy this one. You can see that Peter Cushing was getting a lot older, and but he went out on a high note here. This is one of the best in the series, I think. And you also had David Prowse returning as the monster in this one as well too, although He's like a huge ape man or something. The design is very odd and very interesting, almost like the Hulk, with like a hairy version of the Hulk. But very good film. And last but not least, we have Fear in the Night. It's kind of a one that doesn't get talked about very often when it comes to the Hammer series. It's almost like a slasher film, Fear in the Night, with Joan Collins in the film. I think this is her only Hammer performance. She had been in Amicus films too, like Tales from the Crypt, but yeah, and you got Peter Cushing, of course, and Ralph Bates, and this is a fantastic film. Really enjoy it. So check this one out if you haven't. If you love Hammer films, this is kind of a one you don't hear about too often. Alright guys, that is it for Volume 5 of my old classic films collection. And thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Urshan. Good evening, folks, and we got some brand new merchandise for you over at www.thehorrorkona.com, and that's CONA.com. Representing the Horror Corner. Great new design. We got the Morbid Hour live stream there. You got the Horror Hangout live stream there. And you got my nemesis, the Dark Fate. So grab your t-shirt over at www.thehorrorkona.com. And we also got this beautiful new mug. Look at that. Very, very cool. Thought that came out really nice. So grab your merchandise today over at www.thehorrorkona.com.